So I can make and interpret a histogram, which means we should probably figure out what a histogram is, right?
Yeah.
A histogram, do we write all that? Shows the frequency of data as a graph. Do you know what frequency means? Someone told me radio frequency in first hour. This is a different kind. Rin?
Like, how frequent it is or how, like, much it is?
Good, good, good. I was thinking how often, but how much works just fine. How much of something?
I would go with time of day.
Nope, I like how much. And then there's 4 things that we're going to do to make this histogram. Step 1, choose equal intervals. And I'll explain that better in a minute. Step 2, tally the data. Step 3, make a histogram using vertical bars. I forgot part of it. And a number line. There's just 4.
Some more.
There's a 4. Step 4, include a title and label the axes. That's a plural for both axes, X and Y. When we make it down below, the steps are going to make more sense to us. Good? Not good? Okay, so here is our data. It is asking about battery life. I'm changing the scenario a little bit to be cell phone battery life. So Zach Hellstrom says his lasts for 9 hours. Drake can go 12 hours with plugging it in. Sophie can go 14 hours. Godiva can go 10 hours. On and on and on and on. So first we have to pick some intervals so we can organize this somehow. Here is a good example not related to battery life. But our schools, if you think of Fieldstone and Middle School West and the high school, they have really good intervals already. Because if you go to Fieldstone, you're in grades 1 through 4. That would be an interval. And if you're at West, you're in grades 5 through 8. And then if you're at the high school, and they're equal, because how many grades are at Fieldstone? 4. How many grades are at West? 4. How many grades are at the high school? 4. So it's not like we said, okay, grades 1 and 2, and then 3 through 7, and then 8 and 9. Do you see how that wouldn't be equal?
I mean, I bet there's schools out there.
There probably are. Ours are just perfectly in such nice math
But the 8
organization.
and 9 one would be a good school.
Kindergarten has their own school.
You're right. I didn't include kindergarten on purpose because it broke my interval. So then you would like picture the people on your street or in your cul-de-sac or in your apartment, wherever you are, and you could say, oh, next door to me they have a 1st and a 5th grader. And at my house we have a 5th and a 7th grader. And at the other side of me there's a 10th and a 8th grader.
I have a 7th and 11th.
So you go through and then tally, that's number 2, right? Tally next to your intervals, how many kids are there? Are we getting the idea of the intervals?
Yeah.
Okay, so then this one, we wouldn't use those same intervals because it's a different situation, different numbers. It is helpful to look for the smallest number. Somebody said it. Smallest number? 9, and the biggest number?
23.
23. Which, how many numbers are in there?
12.
So that's kind of like the range.
Oh.
What would be a good way to split up the numbers in between 9 and 23?
Do the random order.
9 through 12.
Okay, 9 through 12. Okay, I know, because there's more than one way to do it. Bryn says she's going to make quarters, like split the data into fourths. Great. Ellie says she's going to do 9 through 12. So now just think of Ellie's way for a minute. 9, 10, 11, 12. What does her next one have to be? 13, 14, 15, 16. Who's right, Bryn or Ellie? Both. So it kind of depends on how you want to make your interval. Someone else might do 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13 and 14, 2 in each group. So that part's a little tricky because there's more than one right way to do it. If you didn't think of your own way, is it okay to use Ellie's idea?
Sure.
Okay, so then the next group, 17, 18, 19, 20? Yeah. 21, 22, 23, 24. Oh, nice. But there's no 24.
Aren't we going by 4s?
It's just what's in between.
Is it okay that there's a 24 on here and we don't have a 24? Yeah. It does look a little tricky. That's why I literally count on my fingers. 9, 10, 11, 12. It seems like that's 3 numbers, but it's really 4. I literally counted on my fingers. Bryn.
Yesterday when I was doing my homework, I kept thinking that 20 through 24 was only 4 numbers, but it's 5
Right.
of the 20.
It counts 20
Yeah.
and 24 plus the 3 in the middle. I know.
I only had to do 4 problems. I'm like, but that's not right.
The intervals are a tiny bit tricky. So now number 2, make tallies, right? So when you see Drake with his 9-hour phone, that's 1 tally next to my 9 through 12 group. Zach Hellstrom with his 12-hour phone, or was it the other way? Another tally next to my 9 through 12 group. Godiva, oh, she's in the higher group. Hers lasts a little longer. So I'm just going through the list and making tallies. Does anybody have the same tallies as me?
I do.
Okay, because sometimes when I'm talking, I lose track of what number I'm on. I also like to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So then do I have 12 tallies?
Yeah.
Oh, good, I didn't miss any. So we did kind of step 1 and step 2 already, right? Step 3, we're going to need our vertical bars. And now this is where histogram is kind of just a fancy name for a bar graph. Why does math make it so fancy? I don't know. Who knew it was such a fancy subject like that? And a number line. Do you have some sort of straight edge still?
No.
Or whatever you were faking it with before?
Oh, yeah, that's some.
Definitely like that many books.
Sophie had her bar graph for her bookmark. I literally just picked a spot to put an x-axis. And bar graphs, the y-axis is usually invisible, to tell you the truth. Up is usually invisible. And histograms don't have to start at 0. It's like they're changing all of Descartes' rules on this. What you should do, though, is back to that equal thing. You don't want one skinny bar and then one fat one. It makes it's called distorting the data. So if you want them all to be 1 box wide, then you do that the whole time. Or if you want them all to be 6 boxes wide, then you do that the whole time. I usually pick like 3 or 4 boxes wide. So my first one is going to be 9 through 12. So I just kind of make an interval of width on my number line and call it 9 through 12. And then I'm going to be consistent. So the next one, 4 boxes also. If you want skinnier ones, make skinnier ones. If you want wider ones, make wider ones. If you know people with a job in business, marketing, human resources, HR, they do a lot of graph making like this. And then they present it to their bosses a lot or other coworkers. So then, since my 9 through 12 interval has 6 tallies, I would make that 6 boxes high. And then my 13 through 16 is 3 high. person read my mind. The people in the business world often make it colorful so that whoever they're presenting to wants to look at it. Eyes like color. So Mason's kind of shading his in over there. Is it required? No, but it's nice to look at. Or maybe one of them is kind of diagonal like that, and the other one has stripes. There's lots of ways to do it. That's kind of the fun part of their job. What color should I use for this? Are we missing anything? Great.
Title?
Oh yeah, what were we talking about again? Battery life. And we're measuring in hours. And then remember how I said the y-axis is invisible? Almost always they use that frequency word right here, where Bryn said how much.
Even like this where they're not like smooth together.
Oh yeah. I smushed mine together. Bryn left a little bit of space in between each one of hers. Do you know what the important part is? Equal space. So if she leaves one box in between, then they all have to have one box in between. Or two she left, so they all should have two boxes in between. Thanks for the example. And that, like I said, the creativity part about their job, they get to kind of pick how they want it to look. Questions, comments, concerns so far? There was two parts to our learning target. We can make the histograms, check, and interpret. Interpret is kind of a fancy word for use it somehow. So a question might look like, so this histogram is made for us. And then we have to pick the right description from the graph. My favorite thing about multiple choice is some of them absolutely cannot be true, and you can cross them out. So can we tell from the graph letter A how many weigh exactly 4.9 pounds?
Kind of, not really though. It could be like anywhere from 6 to 9. Oh,
Well, this one would be 0 to 4.9. So what if I'm a little, did it tell us an animal?
oh, never mind then. No, giraffe. Well, that's not.
So what if I'm one of those tiny little dogs that weighs like 3 pounds? Do you have one, maybe?
It's supposed to be 3 pounds, but it's like 12. Leo is big.
Do I know exactly how many weigh 4.9?
No, no.
Somewhere in here, right? But not exactly 4.9. Do we know how many weigh between 5 and 10?
No.
How come no?
Because
Bryn.
it's two different bars.
Exactly. 5 is in this group and 10 is in this group. How many animals weigh less than 8? Allison?
Isn't it like around 15?
Say it again.
Isn't it like around 15?
Oh, because you're looking at this?
Yeah.
How many in there are less than 8?
You can't.
Oh. You can't find it? Because there's no column that says 8, right? Well, I hope it's D. How many animals weigh at least 15? What does at least mean? 15 or more.
So yeah, because that's like 15 and up.
Oh yeah, 15 and up.
You don't have to know what animal weighs what, just have to have 15.
So anything in those two categories, right? So it's D. Nice. One other way we could interpret it, if we go back to our battery life one, they could ask us to find, are you ready for our favorite words? Do you have extra space down there?
Yeah.
Perfect. Some people might choose to use the histogram part. Some people might choose to go back up to the data up here. Whose strategy is better? Whatever you feel comfortable doing. Grab your calculator if you need for me.
We turned that one in. And they were just finishing the trailer.
Drake, are you feeling confident about any of these?
Yeah.
Which one?
All of them. I got for me 14.
14 exactly?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. That custom, any of the other three?
Median, I got 12.
How are we doing so far?
I got 18.
All right, so let's check. Oh, you know what the tricky part is? They're not in order right now. Does someone check my work while I do this?
Yeah.
How do you?
Good.
Small, big, small, big, small, big, small, big, small, big,
You have to do 13 because somebody.
Oh, does that make sense, Zach?
Yeah.
It's okay. If I have a mode or range, 10. Oh yeah, look. So it's almost nicer if you make a list. When it's all scrambled like that, it's kind of hard, isn't it? Hard for me. Sophie, range?
14.
How'd you get that again?
I subtract the biggest number minus the smallest number.
23 minus 9. 14, you said?
Well, that's it.
Is this right?
Yeah.
Okay. So far, so good?
Is there an outlier for this one?
Oh my gosh, Maddie, that's a brilliant question. Is there an outlier?
No. Not the
I feel like
number
23
kind of.
Yeah, but look, 23 is so close to 22.
And
No, but there is no
no
one.
like something like this.
I know it seems like there should be one because we did a whole bunch of outlier ones yesterday, but sometimes there just isn't. Now, my old phone probably would be an outlier because I think it lasted 1 hour maybe and it had to be charged all the time. That would probably be an outlier. Or if you have a brand new phone, sometimes it can go for like 2 days even. So 48 hours sometimes when it's brand new, that would be an outlier. But sometimes there isn't one, and that's okay. Thanks for asking that, Randy. Rin?
Do you have a stapler?
Yes. The page 615 looks really goofy, so stick with me for a minute. First of all, it's on the bottom of the page, which almost never happens. And it's hard for me to say the numbers because they're kind of goofed up. So do you see 19 and 20? They don't ask you for a graph or anything. They ask you for mean, median, mode. So it's 19 and 20, but then it starts over at 1, which is goofy, I know. Graph 1 says line plot and frequency table. We don't need that. We need a histogram. And then it asks you the questions, mean, median, mode.
Do we just need graph paper or?
Graph 2, same thing, histogram, mean, median, and mode. So when we had graph paper before and we did 4 parts, you maybe only need 2 parts today because you only need 2 histograms. You can answer mean, median, mode right on the graph paper if you would like to. And these top 2, 19 and 20, don't even need a graph. So it's kind of like 3 different sections. I tried to color code it to help you. So these top 2, no graph. Then they give you new data for this blue section. And then new data for this yellow section. Am I helping with these colors and lines and Addison says yes.
Are we doing all the parts, or do we need to do the checkpoint for this one?